In this video, we're going to review the rules for rounding. You might recall that you use rounding sometimes when you're describing a purchase. For example, say you purchase something for $26.99. Most likely, if you're talking to someone, you're going to say, well, I spent around, say, $27. Or maybe you round it to a different place and you say, well, I spent roughly $30. We also use this when we are rounding decimal values that go on forever or maybe even repeat. So, for example, say we look at the value of 0.6 repeating. One way that we might represent this would be, we could say this is around 0.067 or 67 hundredths if we are asked to round to that second decimal place. When we round, there are essentially two rules that we want to keep in mind, and we can kind of focus our attention on the number line in order to help us with this. Specifically, we want to look at the part of the number line between 0 and 9. When we are asked to round a number, we want to locate the place that we want to round to, and then immediately we want to look to the number on the right side of it. So for example, if we go back to our repeating decimal of 0.6 repeating, if I ask you to round to the hundredths place, or in other words, the second decimal place, I want to look at the digit or the number to the right of it. With regards to those two rules, if the number to the right of your circled value is 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, we would leave our circled digit alone, or in other words, we leave it unchanged. Another way of saying this would be we round down. If the number to the right of our circled digit is a 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, we would round up, or in other words, we round our circled digit up by 1. So as we can see in our example over to the right, since the value or the number to the right of my circled digit of 6 is also a 6, this tells me that I should round up. So I'm going to take my circled 6 and write it as a 7. Before we look at some examples, let's go ahead and review those steps. So step 1 says circle the digit located in the place value you are asked to round to. Once you've done that, look at the number immediately to the right of it. This is where we can use those rules that we just discussed. So if the number to the right is a 0 through a 4, we can leave our circle digit alone or unchanged. If, however, the number to the right of our circle digit is 5 through 9, then we need to round our circle digit up by 1. And once we are done with that, we are going to present our final answer. I'm going to go into a little bit more of the finer details on how to present that final answer when we look at our example problems. For our first example, we want to round the value to the nearest hundredths place. So really quickly, just note that the TH is indicating that we are looking for a place value to the left of the decimal point. In this case, the hundredths place would be the second decimal place. From here, what we're going to do is we'll look at the number to the right, and we're going to note that it's a 7. So this tells us that we want to round our 5 up to a 6. So this is going to give us approximately 12.26 or 12 and 26 hundredths. Just a quick highlight. Note I'm using approximation symbols here instead of an equal sign. That's going to indicate to us or to your reader or whoever you're presenting this to that you did some sort of rounding. Also notice that once I rounded to the hundredths place, all the other digits after it are no longer needed, so they are just dropped away. For our second example, we want to round the value to the nearest 10,000ths place. So notice there is no TH, so we are working with the place values that would be located on the left of the decimal point. So the 10,000ths place would be where our 5 is located. Looking to the right, we see that the value is 4, so that means that we are going to leave the 5 alone. So when we round this, we are rounding down. So this will become 3,650,000. Notice that the value that we presented as our rounded value is smaller than the original value that we started with. That's why we say we round down. As before, notice that anything after the decimal place just vanishes, and anything to the left of the decimal point but to the right of our value that we're rounding just becomes zeros. Our third example is round the value to the nearest ones place. So our ones place is always going to be located directly to the left of our decimal point. Also, just as a quick side note, remember there is no oneths place. The place value that's immediately to the right of our decimal point is the tenths place. So now that we have that identified, again, we've circled our ones place, which is being held by that 8. We are going to look directly to the right, and we're going to see that the number is 0. So again, that's going to tell me I'm going to leave the 8 alone. So in other words, I'm going to round down this value. So this is going to give me about 348. Now it's your turn. So what I would like you to do is go ahead and read through these 3 problems. Pause the video to work on them, and when you are ready, we'll go ahead and we'll review these. Here are our solutions. So 1, round the value to the nearest thousandths place. This will be the third decimal place. Circling the 3 that's being held in that position and then looking to the right, we see that the number next to it is 6. That's going to tell us to round that value up by 1. So our solution should be 6 and 814 thousandths. Question 2, round the value to the nearest hundreds place. So our hundreds place is being held by 5, and then looking immediately to the right, we see that we have another 5 next to it. That tells us that we're going to round up. So our solution for this one will be 34,600. And lastly, round the value to the nearest tenths place. So again, our tenths place is going to be the place value immediately to the right of our decimal point. Taking a look to the right of our 3, we see that we have a 1. That's going to tell us that we are not going to change the 3. So in other words, we are rounding down to a solution of 86 and 3/10.